Do it later. All right. Our next speaker is the Reverend Derrick Jackson, who is a Demon student in theology and the arts at United and will be presenting Creative Lament, a workshop. So indeed seems like maybe there's some themes that might pass over to this one. Thank you, Derrick.
Great. Give me a second to get my slide running and shared. Good morning. So I am going to talk a bit about Creative Lament. If the slide will. Let me try this one. The joy of technology. There we go. All right. So this is a workshop on Creative Lament, and just to kind of give you an overview of our time together, I'll give an introduction on what I mean by talking about lament and creative lament. I'll go over the form of a lament that I'll be working with. We'll have an opportunity to do a community lament together, and then I'll be a closing. I'll also, in my closing piece, I will have a slide with a link to a folder with a few resources, which will include the slide presentation. So don't feel like you need to take pictures and notes. You have access to that as well as other pieces as well. So what do I mean when I talk about creative lament? And why now? There's a lot going on in our world right now. It is, and it has been actually for a while, but I feels like it has hit a fever pitch in these past few months. And we need spiritual practice to help us get through when things are difficult, when we're wrestling with the world and our experiences. And lament is a great spiritual practice to help us deal with the grief that we're feeling, the powerlessness, the suffering, and find a way to move through it. Lament is traditionally a form of prayer, and it allows us, in the way I think of lament, it allows us to journey from pain to hope. In a lament, we not only name the grief, we not only name what we are feeling, what we are engaging, what we are seeing, but we also then name what needs to be changed, what it should look like. And when we can imagine the possibility of change, then it helps us move into that space of being able to move towards that change because we are moving towards something we can imagine and not to some figurative idea of what the next could be. We become co-creators of the change that we wish to see. Feels a lot like the hopeful eschatology that John Mark was talking about yesterday, or I guess was that Monday? It all was merged during this symposium. But I resonated with that idea because I feel like lament is one of the ways that we can move towards hopeful eschatology. And oftentimes when we deal with lament, we deal with words. And we're in the seminary, we do a lot with words. And I want to bring the idea of creative lament, of thinking about that words aren't the only way in which we can express our pain, our suffering, and envision what is new. And then sometimes words can't capture it in the way that other artistic forms can. So this is a place where we can draw on the visual arts, drawing, painting, or doing collage work, use music, to bring out our laments. Use movement, how our bodies engage, or even practical arts of the fiber arts, sculpture, carving. There are many ways in which we can take the form of a lament and move it into art. And creatively, whatever works for you, to be able to move away from trying to put words around something, but let the feeling, the emotion come out. So I want to talk a bit about and go through the lament forms that that I work with. And this lament form is adapted from the work of Bernard Anderson in his book, Out of the Depths. And you start with the address. And this is what are we praying to? What words of address come out of your place of despair? And this can be God or goddess or a specific deity that you particularly work with, or a concept like love, peace, justice. That we call out to who we need to hear this cry of where we are moving. Then we have the naming. We name the problem. What are you going through? What are you experiencing or seeing that is unfair? Naming is extremely important. It lifts up what is happening and allows the burden to be shared because we can talk about it. We are naming it, it becomes real and not external. It brings it out so that we as a community, whoever is engaging, can be a part of that. It also provides clarity on what it is. It forces us to actually engage. So what is actually wrong? What are we dealing with? And when we name it, then we can point to it. It's like, this is the problem. Then there is the grounding in faith. Where is faith in the midst of the problem that was named? In what do we trust? In what do we have faith? This is a theological statement. This is actually saying where do we find a grounding in the midst of all that is happening? What holds us? What might be able to be an anchor to get us through? Next is the resolution. What do you want changed? What's the solution? What would it look like? This is where you can share what you would like to see happen. And in a lament, you don't have to follow natural laws or even human decency. This is to share to the fullest of yourself what you want to see. If you look at the laments in the Bible and look through the Psalms, there's a lot of pettiness in those Psalms. They aren't sugarcoating what they feel. They're very direct. If they want someone the God to smite someone, they will say it. You can go that far in your lament. It's about the release to be able to say, if money was no object, if I had all the power in the world and I can make this change, this is what I want it to be. And sometimes we have to, when writing the lament, even if we're writing it for a community or for others, sometimes you need to write it in the words that speak to you yourself. And then you can kind of shape it to be part of the community, but let out what you need to say. And if you need to use all the profanity in the world to express it, do it. That just allows you to move into that space of envisioning and naming and being clear about what you want change and bring up all the feelings that are there. Next is the statement of confidence. And this is, in some ways, sometimes it can feel like a leap of faith to actually say, I have confidence that this prayer is being heard. It's a statement of belief that change can happen. And sometimes we are not mentally there to actually say that change will happen. We want it, but we might not be there. And that's okay. You can, this may be a part where you might say, I can't include this in my lament. I am not there. And there's also a piece of putting it out there and sharing that with others, because others might be able to have that confidence for you. And sometimes we need others to hold that confidence so until we can get there. And we might not. But that is power, part of the power of community and communal lament is that we can share in that confidence. That change can happen. And finally, we end with gratitude. We end with gratitude that this is going to happen. This is continuing the space. This is not just something I am putting out there conceptually. I will see this happen. This is possible. It's that positive reinforcement that I'm just going to put all the energy out there that this change, we can make it. Is one of the beauty of lament, because I think oftentimes when we think of lament, we really think about the naming, the lifting up and everything. But lament is also about saying, here's what I want to change, and I believe it will be changed. I am putting all of my energy into the change. And in pagan circles, we would call lament a spell, because you are actually naming and you are putting all the energy and saying, invoking the change that's happened. And I think that in our prayers, we do invoke what we want to happen and the change, and that is powerful. So I'm going to invite us into a community lament. And I want us to do, as we're engaging in a creative lament, we want to do this in the form of embodiment. That we'll use our bodies, maybe use sound to engage our laments. Because our bodies hold our stories. And in a way of actually engaging the lament, that we can use our bodies to help release our lament. And they may actually get to a deeper place of that lament. And I invite you as we go through this, that you take care of yourself, because there's the sorrow, the pain can also be in that space. And if you feel that, oh, I can't go there, that is fine, because witnessing is also part of the process. And if you need to be a witness, that you can witness as well and hold the space. And so engage as we go through the stages of the lament, engage as you will. I invite you to, if this is something, and I know for people, embodiment is out of their comfort zone. And I always invite you to take a chance, try and engage, but also know yourself. And don't put yourself in a place where you feel that you bringing out things that are not going to be helpful for you. So you can choose to witness or engage, and you can do this sitting or standing, however. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the different parts of the lament, and then invite you to find a body pose, and it can be static or moving, whichever kind of comes for you. And if a sound comes out, let the sound out as well. And we'll just kind of move and create a communal lament, a visual lament. You can also, as you even in space, feel free to take a look around and see what's happening as well, to be a part of that. And so before we move into that, I just want us to just kind of get back into our bodies. We've been sitting for a while, and so just move in ways that just kind of releases cramped muscles. Some of us, breath is helpful. And so if you want to take a deep breath in and let it out with a sigh. And just come into a centered place as we move through our lament. So who or what are we praying to? What words of address come out of your despair? Just find a place to be. Oh, I actually put the wrong, I copied the slide wrong. So the naming, what are you going through? What are you experiencing that is unfair?
How long will you work?
Whenever I've prayed lately, I get an answer. And God is just always saying no.
Mhm. Grounding in faith. Where is faith in the midst of the problem that is named? In what do we trust? In what do we have faith? What would be the solution? What do you want changed? Mhm.
And then global capitalism.
Mhm. Express your confidence that the prayer is heard, your belief that change will happen. Let's end with praise and gratitude for the resolution. Amen and blessed be. Thank
Amen.
you. Thank you for uh, engaging in this experiment in communal lament. Not something that we do very often. And I'm glad that you journeyed with me in this practice. So I invite you to think about how you might take lament with you to your communities. That form can, I've adapted it. You can adapt that form as you will. That in my list of resources, that form is there. But I think it's important that we bring practices of lament to others and share that and engage in lament on a regular basis, particularly in times such as now. There was a phase where I was writing laments often, and I had stopped writing them. And as I was looking back, I realized, oh, yeah, 2016 was when I was writing laments pretty regularly. It's like, huh. And I'm feeling the call again now to engage in the lament practice. And it does provide that space of being able to recognize what is going on. And I find that it just, when I write a lament, that even if physically things don't change, something changes within me. And then I am inspired to think about what I can do in the world. I also think of laments as living things, as a way of living, of engaging, of recognizing and naming what is going on in the world. And then saying, well, this is what needs to be changed. And I'm going to be a part of changing to make that happen. And so I invite us to use our creativity and live our laments in the world. Well, that is important in this particular time. I am, let's see. So this is a QR code for a folder, a Google folder that I have that has this slideshow on it. It has a list of a document that has the lament form that you can use. I've also have done this a workshop using the zine format, where you fold the zine and you can create a zine during lament. So I have the zine form on there, instructions how to fold the zine in case it's something new to you. And it's also a great way to have, actually I was gonna fold one and bring it with me, but I didn't. But it's pocket size, so that you can actually then have blank ones in your pocket. And if you're in the moment, like, I need to do a lament now, you can actually just create one in the moment. I also have with me some blank sheets as well as with the zine form. So if you want to have one, I don't know if I might have enough for everybody, but I can also share that with you as well if you want to do something here while you're still here at Symposium. So I invite any questions that you have around the process, or comments or reflections on this process and lament.
This is John Mark, and first of all, Derek, I really appreciate this. You're right. We're gonna have to sit down and talk more about various expressions of hopeful eschatology. What really struck me about this is one of the things that brought me to United was this understanding of implicit religion, primarily in queer and punk spaces. And in queer and punk spaces, in art, in music, in all of these things, it often comes in the format of this kind of creative lament that you're putting here, with the naming, addressing, grounding, normally in our communities, and the hope that we have in those. But I guess my reflection was, I just felt like this is a really beautiful way of making a ritual out of practical theology. And it's a grounding, sustaining practice, but it's also an energizing one. there's this end of the cycle when we come to that gratitude as we move forward. And I'm really grateful for the way that you format that.
Thank you. I've been thinking a lot of how we think about theology and the way we embody our theology and engage our theology and live out our theologies. One of my colleagues, when I was on the faculty of Meadville Lombard Theological School, talked about theology is not something you have, but something you do. And that has stuck with me. And so as I think about the ways that we think about our theology, it's like, how does that manifest? How do we bring that into life? And this is one of the ways that I have been trying to play with it. Look, Amy, you have a hand
Yeah,
up?
Amy, go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for that. I had the same response as John Mark, like, that was, I did not expect that to be so joyful. Okay, so you said we can ask anything. So as I think about bringing this into worship in my UU congregation, the Frozen People, I wondered if you had any tips about how to get people comfortable moving and embodying prayer in a
Yes.
public space.
Yes, I have done that a lot with in UU spaces. And as I kind of introduce this, I always introduce engagement as this might be something that is outside of your comfort zone. And this is an invitation to engage and to try. This is only, and often I will say, this is one time that we're going to do this. So so I invite you to try, but also know yourself and be comfortable with where your boundaries are. And we invite you to witness as well. And I find that people, we giving permission, but not requirement, are actually more willing to, particularly with UUs, I find are more willing to, if you ask for permission and not say, you're going to do this, will more likely say yes. And, I have been amazed at the things that I have gotten UUs in particular to do with that sort of that invitational space. And I sometimes talk about consent as well. Is that this invitation means that you can say yes, or you can choose to say no, and you can also modify it to work within what you need. And it just gives people just that feeling that they are in charge of making the decision, and that I think really helps a lot.
I just wanted to say that I was thinking about shortly after the 9/11 attacks, Women Against Military Madness here in town had a newsletter, and the title of which was "Leave Us to Grieve in Peace." And the article was all about how by, sort of subverting a grief or lament process, um, the ways in which revenge and retribution was the other choice. And I just love the way, I just want to sort of make the direct connection to some of the stuff that we were talking about, and the ways in which I just love the ways in which lament and grief, public grief, is a kind of eschatological, like, it's a way to help bring the world we want into being. So I just, amen and thank you.
Thank you.
The public enactment and the format reminded me of Theater of the Oppressed, and I was wondering if you were informed by that, and also if you've ever done this exercise in a way where people build something collectively and then repeat it, multiple times or later, and what that feels like if you have, or if you haven't, would you ever, and what do you think it would look like?
Yeah. So yes, I do have some grounding in Theater of the Oppressed. This is actually the first time I've done the embodiment version. I've done with the zine and actually creating, but I've actually it has been like an idea to do this embodied. And so this is the first time we've done it. I like the idea of that repeated piece because then it, I think of the theater of the press and also some other theater forms that you kind of, I just think of a spiral base that when you kind of repeat it, you get to go deeper and deeper. And so I actually think that would be a really nice way to actually do that is, okay, now we're going to go through it again and we'll see what comes up and then what comes up in this layer. And in some ways, I think we might, I imagine that a lament that repeats in that way will get, and that's like the third or fourth lament, depending on how many times you do it, will get to some really deep core things because you're also building a connection in the group as well. So I think that could be a very powerful ritual, and I'm gonna keep that. That's a possibility, something to try. Yeah.
Thank you so much. This was really powerful, and it's just good to share this space and be held in this container by you. I, when I worked at this magazine called G's, we were resistant to the tagline "Don't mourn, organize," and we created a button that said "Mourn and organize." And so I'm thinking about that right now. But you've been talking, it's everything you're sharing is related to that, I feel, but I'm just curious if you could say more. I'd love to hear in your words, like how you understand lament as tied to organizing and movement work and like not seeing those things as oppositional, but connected. Sounds like you do. So
Yes.
I'd love to hear more.
Yes. Thank you. And I love the work of G's. So those are great resources that I have used out of that. So as I think about organizing and justice work and lament, and as I think about some of the work that I've been engaged in, what I have found is sometimes there is a focus on a nebulous injustice that we are engaging in working on to do something with, but there's not clarity. There's not a kind of, there's injustice and these people can actually make some change and we want to focus on this aspect of it or different pieces and I feel like lament brings us to a place of saying this nebulous injustice, which often has many layers, is to be able to say, I want to focus on this aspect of things. Like there's this, all of this is bothering me, but the fact that, the people in this particular community are struggling because of food insecurity is a more specific place to say that and to say, so I envision that this group is able to then receive the food and have access to more food. And you can start to envision even, once you start moving in there, envisioning like, so what would that look like? And and that's why I like the creative aspect, because I think sometimes with words, we kind of stop, but in creative, you can actually start drawing out a map of like what this could look like and imagine all the different layers of the work that can happen. And then you all of a sudden now have in your lament have created a roadmap of how you're going to make the change that needs to be made. And so, but it also, part of lament is that we are naming the fact that has an emotional effect on us. And sometimes we get to the justice piece where we don't actually do our own self-work and say like, this is hurtful for me. I feel pain, I feel this. And so lament, it really does get us to places like, yes, this is painful for me. I am seeing this injustice. Here's how this affects me, name it. And then be able to move through that and use that pain as a catalyst to say, I want to do something different. I want to be part of making it different. Not just because it's conceptually this is injustice, but because I actually really am connecting with the injustice that is felt, and that is helping motivate me. I think I know for myself, the things that I have felt more connected to have made it much more easy for me to sustain the justice work than when it's something that people say, you should do this. And I do it because I feel like I should, but I haven't really engaged or connected with it, that it's much harder to actually continue and follow through. So I think lament helps us understand what are the ways that we can really do that work.
So thank you so much, Derrick. Please join me in thanking Derrick for this wonderful workshop.